All right, who is ready for some spring football and who's ready for what could be the most exciting Boston College spring football period in the last 2 decades?
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Folks, we are now days away from the start of spring football. It feels like the Fenway Bowl was just a couple days ago. And it feels like Jeff Halfley just quit on the team, what, last week? But we're here. It's time to start spring football. March 11th on Monday is going to be the official kickoff of Boston College's spring football period. Now, 15 practices culminating in the Jay McGillis spring game on April 13th. There's a pro day thrown in there as well. Let's talk about what could be some of the big storylines because I'm telling you folks, there's more excitement around this program right now than there has been in years, and a lot of that has to do with Bill O'Brien. After a year where Boston College went 7-5, going into the spring with Jeff Halfley, you felt like you were just kind of going through the motions because you had a difficult schedule. You didn't think things were going to get much better, but you brought in a high caliber head coach, one that BC has never really had in years in Bill O'Brien. And so now that you get this coach, one that folks are going to want to know what's going on with this guy, like what's he going to do? Like he's not with the Patriots anymore. He's not with Alabama or Ohio State. He's with Boston College. Can he bring this program to that next level? It's spring football. It's going to be hard to say that that is a storyline, but folks are going to want to know. They're going to want to know what Bill O'Brien is doing at Boston College because he's got a lot of things going on. Now, let's look at one of the big storylines, and it actually culminated today if you're listening on Thursday, and that is the addition of all the new coaches. We've on Locked On BC have talked about the coaches as they've been rolling out. Pete Thamel, he's connected to BC. He gets all the names, and we knew who was going to be hired right away. On Thursday, we finally got the names. It felt like Thamel announced these about a month ago, but we know who they are now. On the offensive side of the ball, the big name coming in is offensive coordinator Will Lying, who is the tight ends coach from the Patriots. This is a guy that Bill O'Brien absolutely trusts. He's been with him at multiple stops. He was with him at Penn State. He was with him at the Texans. This is a young up-and-coming coach, and in so much so that I've heard buzz that if Gerard Mayo was not going to be the head coach in waiting with the Patriots, Will Lying was that dark horse candidate. He's very well thought of. This is an exciting hire right here. Of any of the new coaches, I think Will Lying is the most exciting. He's a younger coach, and this is his real first dive into being a college coach. And, as the offensive coordinator, he's got a lot going on that he's going to have to deal with. He's going to have to figure out how to get this offense going with Thomas Castellanos. He's going to have to figure out, getting Bill O'Brien's system out there while also not just jamming a square peg, as in Castellanos, into a round hole. On top of that, he has to also do the college football thing, which is recruiting. Long is going to be the offensive coordinator, which means his role as a recruiter is usually just the quarterback. And so BC does not have a quarterback committed for the class of 25. Their number one, when Halfley was here, Blake Herbert is gone. He's gone to Clemson, and he's not coming back. So Long has some work to do. And I believe, a lot of times with offensive coordinators, when they go after quarterbacks, they like to see them throw first. They like to see how they look, how they, some of their mechanics, see if it's fixable, if it's in good shape, bad shape, what's going on here. So there's a bunch of quarterbacks that they're looking at. he's going to have to evaluate them this spring. And he's also going to have to evaluate the players on his staff. So on his roster. So Long has a big thing in front of him. The next piece I want to bring up is Jonathan DiBiase, who is the new quarterbacks coach. Now, Steve Shimko was the quarterbacks coach / offensive coordinator, and now he's gone. He's heading to Dallas to be with the Cowboys as an analyst. They promoted Jonathan DiBiase, who was an analyst last year. Jonathan DiBiase was a Gatorade Player of the Year for Massachusetts. And I'm really excited to see what he can do, not only with the quarterback position, because I think he'll be a good coach, but also his connections in the city and the state are very good. He's a very well-connected young guy. And I think he's going to be an exciting coach that they're going to bring in. Brand new. So he's a brand new guy on the staff. Now, you have Matt Applebaum and Savon Huggins coming back from the Jeff Hafley era. No big changes there. Those guys deserve to come back, and they're going to. And then finally, Darrell Wyatt, who is kind of my favorite recruiter on this roster. He opened, just like Azar Abdul-Rahim opened doors in the DMV area when he was with BC. Darrell Wyatt, I feel like, does more in terms of that in Texas, and he's the wide receivers coach. So he's their gunner in terms of like good recruiter. He's going to bring in some really crazy names, I bet. And he also gets a promotion. He's the assistant head coach. This was a position I don't believe was filled last year. Hafley had some weird thing where like Rob Chudzinski was like his assistant head coach in offense. As Darrell Wyatt is the assistant head coach. So he goes up from passing game coordinator / wide receiver coach to assistant head coach / wide receiver coach. So that's a big upgrade right there. Now, the defensive side of the ball is all new faces. All 4 guys that are coming in are brand new. Tim Lewis, who we've talked about at length on this show, go back earlier this week. Mitch and I went in detail on what he could do. Longtime NFL coach who's been in the UFL for a while now. What is he going to do with this defense? Because this whole crew, they have the toughest job, in my opinion, because the defense last year could not sack. They could not do much of anything. And they've got to maximize it. And they've got some talent there. They've got to figure out how they want to do it. And if you have not already checked out Mitch's work, Mitch analyzes how he thinks Tim Lewis could bring that down. Now, there's a couple good ace recruiters in this group. You have Ray Brown, who was a very good recruiter for Washington State and Utah State. He was I forget what site had it, but he was a 30 under 30 coach, meaning that he's one of the top coaches under 30 years old. This is a great hire. I'm really excited to see what he can do. You have him, and you have Jeff Commission, who was with BC during the BJ Raji days. He's the defensive line coach, but he brought in Matt Milano. He brought in there was a bunch of Andre Williams, Montel Harris. There was a lot of really good players that have gone through BCE's doors that he was the main recruiter. Now, he spent time at Maine, Old Dominion, Cornell. He's been bouncing around, but he's a positional coach again. He's back at BC, and he's been wicked active on the recruiting trail again. So he's someone to watch. Then you got Dan O'Brien. That's Tom O'Brien's kid. He was SMU's defensive coordinator last year. He spent time at Navy. He's been all over the place too. He'll be interesting to see. And then you have Matt Thurin coming back for special teams. This staff now has to set the culture at Boston College. What does Bill O'Brien want to bring? And I think that's going to be a storyline. I get the sense that it's going to be tough. They're going to be pushing guys. And they're going to be, Jeff Hafley always said, at practices, it's always, there's no set person that's going to win a job. And with Castellanos and Emmett Moorhead last year, he was absolutely right. I think with the new staff, it could be even more of this. There may be players that, for some reason or other didn't click with Hafley, that these guys are going to say, whoa, we need to get them in their starting lineup. Or maybe there's a starter that just doesn't gel. That's going to be a storyline to watch this spring. Like, there may be names that you're not expecting this spring that jump all the way up and jump into our conversations for the fall. I expect that to happen. And in a moment, I want to get into some of the adjustments that we could be seeing, looking at names that could be jumping up into the forefront and names that need to have a big spring, or maybe this could be the end. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Now, I love my Amazon Fire Stick. It is amazing. If you've not already checked it out, you got it. I mean, they're the best. Fire TV is your destination for sports, live games, to highlights, to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing TV. That's what I got. For millions of movies and TVs, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brand, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On. You can get Locked On BC and watch it on your Fire Stick. I hope some of you guys try that out. And most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest world of sports. So check out Fire TVs on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you really should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, and we're talking about the storylines that we're going to be watching this spring. And on this screen right now is the guy that I think everyone wants to see how he gels with this new staff, and that's quarterback Thomas Castellanos. Coming out of nowhere last year, a late commitment in transfer in May, earned Emmett Morehead's job and was the starter for the whole season. And he was reason number one why BC won 7 games last year. He won games on his own. He kept that offense going when things weren't working. And he was one of the most electric players in the ACC. He was absolutely not perfect. He made a lot of mistakes. His accuracy and some of the things that he did were questionable. But BC would not be in the place that they are right now without Thomas Castellanos. So one of the biggest stories this spring is going to be Castellanos. A bunch of different things you're going to want to watch with him. First of all, how is he gelling with this new staff? Now, Bill O'Brien in interviews already has talked so much about how he respects Thomas Castellanos, that Castellanos has been in his office a bunch, and that he's excited to work with him. But he hasn't practiced with him yet. This is going to start now. O'Brien is a quarterback guy. He worked with Brady. He worked with Deshaun Watson. He worked with Jalen Milroe at Alabama. He's been everywhere. Castellanos needs a good quarterback guy. No offense to Steve Shimko, but Bill O'Brien is next level. He's worked with some of the GOATs, right? How much can Bill O'Brien adjust what he's doing? Like some of the issues that Castellanos has. How can he keep him from getting himself worn out like he did last year and banged up? Castellanos got banged up last year. That was just something that happened. This is going to be something really interesting to watch. I'm really interested to talk to O'Brien to hear what his vision is in terms of how he's going to use Castellanos. Because unless something weird happens, Castellanos is going to be the starter next year. You don't have anyone else on this roster that I feel would be able to usurp him, because you've got a guy that ran for 1,100 yards. He's a playmaker. Emmett Morehead was not in that same position going into last year. He had a good month. That was fine. Castellanos broke records last year, but he's going to need some help. And so how he can work with him, how DiBiase and Bill O'Brien can fix some of the things that are keeping him back. Just think of this for a second. If they can fix some of the issues, like how he reads defenses, how he prepares for a game, how much more lethal this offense could be. So this is a big deal. This is a new set of eyes on a guy that has unlimited potential, but needs to get there. That is going to be fascinating. Then on top of that, I'm very interested in. I'm not sure how much we'll get to see of it. Hey, they're opening practices to the press, so finally we're going to be able to watch some of it. But how this offense is going to work? What changes does Bill O'Brien make for this offense? Because it felt like last year they had, excuse me, Shimko and Chudzinski adjust an offense really quickly to get to what Castellanos can do. I imagine that Bill O'Brien is going to not just throw a philosophy out there and say, hey, do this. He's going to put an offense that works best for what Castellanos does. But what will that look like? How will the passing game be adjusted to work better at his strengths and weaknesses? That's something I'm dying for. I'm very interested to see what that's going to look like. Now, around him is a ton of talent. I'm BC's wide receiver room, folks, is one of the most talented groups I've seen at Boston College. You've had Zay Flowers in the last couple of years, who's going to be he's better than anyone they have right now. But top to bottom, that wide receiver room has a lot of guys that they can use. From Jerron Bradley, the transfer from Texas Tech, to Joseph Griffin, to Dino Tomlin, to Lewis Bond. I mean, I don't want to miss a guy, but they've got a lot that they can use. So I'm also really interested to see who in this offensive room rises to the top. I mean, you could go in thinking right now that Lewis Bond's going to be your number one wide receiver next year, and then Jerron Bradley goes out there and blows up, right? But there's also guys that, you have depth, but there's also guys that are going to be watching this going, there's another transfer portal period. Maybe I leave. The name I watch for, and I'm not going to say he's going to do anything, is Joseph Griffin. Joseph Griffin was supposed to be a big target last year, and he didn't play all that much. If he falls behind all these guys, how will he view his role with this team? He's got a big spring ahead of him. He needs to have, he needs to be able to be a big focus on this offense. If he's not, that could be something worth watching. Same thing with the running back position, right? We've already seen a bunch of them leave. But you've got a couple transfers. They transferred to BC. Who's going to get that spot? I think that's going to be worth watching as well. Now, in our final segment, I have two more storylines I think are very worth watching. You're going to want to hear my thoughts on all of that in just a moment. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the job. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which make it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. So go check it out. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. I mean, if I'm looking for a job, I know I'm going to LinkedIn because the best candidates are out there. You're going to find them right there. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. Now, I believe coming up soon, we're going to have another deal up on Eagle Insider. We have a ton of information. We have tons of recruiting news coming out. I have a running list of all the visitors coming. 4-star alert. I have a crystal ball in for someone to commit. Things are picking up, and Bill O'Brien's starting to get some momentum. You want to get over to Eagle Insider, check that out, because this is one of our other storylines they're going to watch for, the recruiting. Jeff Hafley watched recruiting fall down the toilet because he had to adjust and go more towards the transfer portal. Hence why his class was in the 90s last year, because he didn't really put together much of a class. It was a smaller class. There wasn't a top heavy guy, a lot of top heavy guys there. I think Bill O'Brien's going to change that. He's got talent on his roster. He can bring in guys to develop now. So now he's making new offers. He's reaching out to guys that Hafley brought in, or reached out to guys Hafley offered. He's bringing them on campus. Expect lots of kids coming to these practices. I think of names like Gerard Funk. Not Gerard Funk, excuse me. Dominic Funk. Gerard's his dad. Dominic Funk, who is going to be a 4-star defensive end in class of 2026. He's going to be on campus twice this year. He's going to be at the spring game and at a practice. You've got quarterbacks. Grady Adamson from Oklahoma is coming to campus. There's multiple quarterbacks. You've got big-time edge rushers coming in. Jeff Commission, the defensive line coach, has been doing a ton of that. So I expect that this is going to be busy. And what this is doing is you're getting unofficial visitors, right? So if you're new to the recruiting world, unofficial visitors, these are kids paying for their own trip to come see BC. For some kids that live far away, they're not going to take an unofficial visit. I actually talked to one kid the other day. He's like, hey, AJ, it's like too far, and I don't want to have to spend that kind of money to go for free. I mean, go for something that, I have to pay for. Totally makes sense. But you do have guys. I said Oklahoma, California. You get guys that'll come. What they're setting themselves up for is to see the program. They want to meet Bill O'Brien. They want to meet the staff, the players, and see what kind of culture this program is putting together. Once they do that, then they're setting themselves up for future official visits. That's when BC pays for them to come to campus. They wine and dine, take them for dinner, all that good stuff. You've seen the pictures. You know what that is. So these spring unofficial visits are critical for Bill O'Brien's success moving forward. You see, like, I look at Syracuse right now. Fran Brown, the new head coach at Syracuse, has a ton of momentum because he was the number one recruiter in the country at Georgia. And he made a lot of connections there. Now you look and there's a ton of big name recruits that are putting out top school lists, and Syracuse is up there with like Alabama, Georgia. That's nice because they're for them, but that's at the unofficial visit phase. If they get them on campus for official visits and can get them to beat out those other programs, that's a different story. For BC, they're getting O'Brien is right in the right line, I think, for some good, solid 4 stars, but guys that BC can legitimately land. There was a few new names that I saw coming up too that I think are going to be exciting that haven't come up in terms of offers that are very interested in Boston College that we'll have up on Eagle Insider. But I look at these guys, and they have a big March and April ahead of him. So check out Eagle Insider for all the lists of names. I have them all. Finally, the last big storyline about this is the biggest one. I kind of kicked it off with this, but the interest in this program. I'm interested to see the changes that Bill O'Brien makes that brings more interest to this program. Now, first of all, it's a small thing, and honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Some reporters are gonna think it's great. I personally think it's cool that I can do this, but is it gonna change things? I don't think so. But practices are open to the press finally. Jeff, you've listened to this podcast. If you've heard it, I've said, Halfley and sometimes Adazio, you only got 20, 30 minutes of practice time that you could watch. And they put it at the beginning of practice. Then you get to stand around for 2 hours and wait. And then you got to go to the press conference. It was the most backwards policy ever. And honestly, like, that's part of the reason why I live far away. So it's tough for me to get to all these. But part of the reason why I didn't want to go is like, I'm not going to go watch practice and then sit around for 2 hours and then go to and have to pay. You have to pay for your parking too. And then do that. But now I can watch practice. I can give you guys reports on who's standing out, what's going on, and some of the just initial reaction. That's cool. That gives you more access to the program. That is big. Not only that, and I think we saw this at Bill O'Brien's initial press conference. There are many more local news outlets and more local interest in this because Bill O'Brien is a local name. This is a coach, not Jeff Halfley, who, was from Ohio, and Steve Adazio, who was from Connecticut, but, he was an SEC guy. This is a guy from Massachusetts. He coached for the Patriots. He's been with the Patriots for a long time. A lot of non-BC fans know who Bill O'Brien is. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this. You have a very interesting quarterback with him and with Bill O'Brien. this is going to be the most excitement around Boston College in a long time. And I'm excited to see how much this change, how much change we'll see in terms of coverage. Will we get more, I doubt it, but maybe there'll be more things in the Globe or the Herald and all that good stuff. So I think these are all big storylines. And, there's going to be individual nitty gritty things that we'll get into later, but that's the big ones. These are the big overarching ones. This weekend, BC hockey plays Merrimack twice. You got baseball playing a doubleheader tonight, if you're listening on Friday, against NC State as they kick off ACC play. And then basketball ends their regular season against Louisville. Women's basketball ended their season on Thursday with a loss against Louisville. Against Louisville, and the game they should have won. But that's going to wrap things up. Thank you all for listening. Hit that like button. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button before you head out and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything on YouTube to subscribe, and it does help us out a ton. So please do that. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. We're on Instagram. You can find us on Eagle Insider on Instagram. To follow us along there, it's where all the kids are at, right? And follow me on Facebook and all the other socials. Thank you all so much. If you're a everydayer, you guys are the goats. Thank you so much. If you've listened to all 5 episodes, if you haven't, after you're done with this one, go back and listen to some of the other episodes this week. I mean, the last month or so, it's all football talk. Go back and check them out. If you like what I had to say, we do these 5 days a week. We're the only daily Boston College podcast out there, and I hope you guys enjoy this. This is Locked On Boston College. We'll be back again on Monday with Locked On BC, your team every day.